Are you wanting to take your 3D models to the next level? Well, today we're going to walk through how to silicone mold a 3D print, cast that in resin so that you can reduce your production time and improve your quality. We're going to get started in just a moment. Hi, I'm Jason, and if you're joining me for the first time, I'm a maker. I enjoy 3D printing, I enjoy drones, photography, videography, tech reviews. If these are things that you also enjoy, go ahead and hit the like button for this video, hit subscribe, and turn on your notifications. Today, we're going to walk through how to silicone mold an existing 3D print. So, if you want to reduce your manufacturing time and improve your quality, this is something you definitely want to consider if you're making the same print over and over again. What we're going to do today is we're going to take this model that I 3D printed and go ahead and talk through what I did to get this ready, and we're going to go ahead and cast this in silicone, pour it in resin, and get this ready to finish and paint to the customer. To start off with this model, what I did was I actually primed it with a filler primer coating, did a couple of coats of that, sanding that each time, getting it nice and smooth. Then I actually went over it with another coat of regular matte primer, looking for any imperfections, making sure that I've got it very smooth so that none of the layer lines are going to show. When you silicone mold, everything that's in your original model is going to show in that silicone mold, and you're going to see that from subsequent casts that you make from that original mold. Now, if you look at this one is completely void of any layer lines or anything. So you can take a look right there. It is nice, clean, shiny. You don't see the normal layers that you see in 3D prints. You can see it on the backside, but that doesn't matter for what we're going to do. So how are we going to accomplish this? Well, to start off, we're going to need to build some boxes to place these in. I'm using foam board for this application. You can pick that up at your craft or hobby store, and it works really well for this application, very inexpensive. Now that we have them all cut out, what we're going to do is we're going to actually cut out the height that will go beside each of these. The way we're going to end up doing that is we'll cut out one strip. After we cut out that one strip, then we will actually make sure we cut out enough to go around the full perimeter of the model, and we'll cut down just the paper side, bend that around the model, super glue that in place. Okay, now that you have your border cut out, you have your model glued down to the base of where you're going to put it so that it doesn't float away. You go ahead and you're going to go ahead and put your walls around your model, gluing on the outside to hold that in place. As the hot glue dries, it should stay in place really well, but you might have to hold it just a little bit as you're letting that dry. You want to get a good seal up under your model so that you don't have any silicone leak out as you are pouring that. Okay, don't forget to seal the ends off after you do that. We'll let that dry. And if you have more than one model, like I do, you want to continue and do this for all of them. Okay, now I have the boxes made for each of my models. In each of these, we're going to mix up the silicone and we're going to pour the silicone into the model, let that cure for approximately 6 hours. Once that's complete, the models will be ready for us to demold and go ahead and get those set up to pour resin in those. Let's walk you through the silicone process. So as you can see, each of these models set up in there have about a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch around the entire model, along with a little bit more on the top. And so as we pour that in, we're going to be able to gauge about how full those models get. The silicone that we're going to be using for this is from Smooth On, and it's the OOMO 30. With this silicone, I chose this specifically because it does not require a scale when you're making it. It can be used as a 1-for-1 silicone. Also, I decided to use this because it has a pot life of about 30 minutes, giving me some time to work through it once I get it mixed up. And then also it has then a cure time of about 6 hours, which works. So what we're going to end up doing is we have a part A and a part B, and we will take these and we will start preparing it. First thing we're going to do, get us a bucket that we can mix this up in. Because it is a 1-to-1 mixture, we're going to go ahead and start off, and we'll do about 1.5 liters of each of them. Get that mixed up well. We'll go ahead and then pour that into our molds, and then we'll come back and we'll mix up some more. So you have to keep this stirred at room temperature. It says also make sure that you stir it well before your use. I have 2 different mixing sticks. I want to make sure that I don't mix in the wrong one with one, just so that I keep those as separate as possible. We're going to start with part B first. I'm going to get this stirred up really well inside of the bucket before I pour that into my measuring cup. Okay, we're going to do a total of 3,000 milliliters first. I've calculated we're going to need about 5,000 for this. So we're going to go ahead and do 1.5 of part B first. So now we just put in 1.5 liters. We're going to go ahead and fill this up to the 3-liter mark, which will get us another 1.5 liters that we need. Now, as you're stirring this, you want to make sure you do not induce any air into this process. This material does not require vacuuming to get that air out of it. So it makes it a lot easier for you to do at home if you don't have all the equipment that you would need to do that. So we're going to get it stirred up really nice, making sure we're not whipping it up. You want to hand stir this. Kind of reminds me of a cotton candy a little bit. There we go. We're getting that nice lavender color now. Even though you do have 30 minutes, once you get this mixed up, you want to go ahead and get that into your molds as quick as you can, because you want to have it as thin as possible as it's going into your molds to be able to get down into those nooks and crevices and get you the best mold that you can. So I've got part A and part B mixed. We're going to drop fill these. I'm going to go ahead and move these over here closer to where I am working. That way it is super easy for me to fill these. I'm going to just drop fill it right in the corner, making sure, letting it fall. I want to make sure I allow the opportunity for that air bubbles to get out of there as much as possible. Just dropping right in the corner, not moving it around, letting that silicone as it pours in find all the corners of the model and fill that in so that we get a really good master mold. There we go. Move to the next one. These are really easy molds to make that I'm making. There's not really any sharp corners. These are the kind that should not cause any major issues. The biggest thing was, since they're 3D printed, you want to make sure you finish your mold, get that nice, smooth, looking as perfect and pristine as possible. That way you don't have any of those 3D printed model characteristics in your final product. Now on this last one that I just did, I did see that there was a little bit of blue kind of on the bottom where it didn't mix as well together. So you can just mix that around on the mold itself. Make sure that that is well mixed together, so that way you get a really good mold there. So I feel like I've topped these off. I've got a little bit more left in here. I've had a couple of these that have leaked out a little more than I was expecting. So just to ensure that we've got a good bottom, I'm gonna put some more in these. So that way I'm not wasting anything left. Okay, now it's time to let these cure. They'll be cured in about 6 hours. Then we'll come back, pull them out of the forms, and see what we've got. Okay, we're back. We have let the molds cure for at least 6 hours. We've actually been a little bit more than that, about 14 hours. And we're ready to go ahead and break these open, see how the molds turned out. One of the reasons we use the foam core for making these is just so we can tear it apart, throw away the foam core afterwards, not out that much. If you're gonna mold again, a lot of different times, you could look at making some wood molds that you can reuse over and over again. But for me, for this application right now, these work just fine. So let's go ahead and get started. Just tearing right into it. Foam core is pulling off really well away from the silicone. Now after I've got the outside, remember we've got the mold that's glued to the bottom here. So as I pull the bottom, I'm going to make sure that comes off well here. Now it looks like a lot of my material got to the bottom of the mold. So I'm just going to go ahead and tear off the back foam board, and then you can actually see in here, you can pull away some of this flashing. Just peels apart right behind your mold, and then we'll be able to pull that mold out of there. And so a lot of this little flashing got up under the mold just because of how I had it glued down. This silicone wants to get everywhere, as we kind of talked about. And so in this case, it's really thin, just tears right off, but it got behind the mold. I've got that cleared out there. Let's go ahead and pull this out. Releasing really well inside of here. There we go. So pulled that out of there, and then you can see a little bit of cleanup around the edge, but we have the mold pulled out of there. That will be what I'll use to make more. Good, kind of solid fill. I probably made this a little too thick, but making sure we're always learning. Okay, I'm going to keep going, go through the rest of these. If you look, any material that kind of leaked out, similar to what you see right here, you can just take that. It pulls right off. It's already hard. No worry there. So when you were pouring it and you had some leaking out, if you did like I did, you can easily just go ahead and pull that off and get rid of that. Not too much of an issue. Okay, so this will be one of the first cups that I'm going to be pulling out. If you remember the cups, they had the size of the cup raised on each of them. So we're going to see how that transferred into the mold. Now each of these cups also had a recessed area. It's part of how I key them together when I put the tops and the bottoms together. And so as I pull this one out, because I know that there's a model beneath part of the silicone, I'm actually going to pull it from the bottom so that way it releases that well. But you know, the silicone, very flexible, very forgiving in that regard. So I don't see it being an issue exactly, but we're going to go and show you this. I'll pull this one out, let it go ahead and breathe a little bit. And also pulling it from the bottom, I have a logo on the bottom of the cup too, and then there's a rim around the cup. So I'm going to kind of lift that up, pull that straight out, so that way it doesn't tear that top rim that I have around the cup there. And if you want to take a look, very cool. A little bit of flashing, might need to be cleaned up, but turned out really nice in that regard. So these will look really good when we pour these. We have them all out of the molds now. They are going to need a little bit of cleanup. I'm going to do that using an X-Acto knife, trimming around these top edges, getting all this flashing out of here so I have a nice clean negative for me to pour the resin into, and I'm going to clean up around the edges of the molds also. Now I have all of the molds cleaned up, and I am going to start casting these molds so that I can get a finished product. What I'm going to be using for this is SmoothCast 305. When it cures, it's going to be a pure white color, so it's not one that you would want to add pigments to. It doesn't take it as well. This one has a pot life of about 7 minutes and a cure time of 30 minutes. So that means that I will have 7 minutes from the time that I mix the two, part A and part B, together to get those into the molds, settled in place, and then they will cure in about 30 minutes. I'll be able to pull those out and do it over again. Because this is a mix by volume and it's a 1-to-1 mixture, I'm just going to be using a measuring cup to do that. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. One of the things you gotta make sure you do before you start with this is shake it up really well. It does say that, make sure you shake it up before you use it. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Because I only have 7 minutes from the point that these two start mixing together to get them mixed up and into the molds, I wanna make sure I use my time very efficiently, and we are ready to go. So we're gonna go ahead and do a total volume of 1/2 liter first. So we're gonna go ahead and put in just 1/4 liter of part B. Both of them are the same color, so you can't really tell as well as you could with the silicone. As this starts to cure, you're gonna see it start to change white in the molds. Because if you remember, this is one that when it cures a nice bright white. That they are mixed up well, but looks really well mixed up now to me. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, I'm going to pour it into our first mold. We want to go ahead and pour it in regards to this mold up to the top, because anywhere this resin is, that's where it's going to be solid and create our final model. And when we cast them, we cast it all the way to the very top. Now, to help with the longevity of our molds, you want to go ahead and do some ease release 200 in the mold just to make sure. That when you cast it, it's able to come out very easily. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go into the small one here. Now, again, I chose 305 compared to the other options that were there, really because I knew that I had large models and that I would be doing a lot of them at a time, and that 30-minute cure time was not too long for me. 7 minutes was a little short, but it was better than the next longer one, which ended up having a 3 to 4 hours, and it was much better than the really short ones that I don't feel would have given me enough time to mix. Okay, I've let the models cure for about an hour. They should be solid now since the cure time for the SmoothCast 305 was 30 minutes. So we're gonna go ahead and take those out. Now, I did show you guys before I put these in there, use some ease release 200. That helps get the model out a little bit easier. You don't have to have it. It also improves the lifespan of your silicone molds. So if you're planning on using these over and over again, taking care of them so you don't cause too much damage as you get them out. Now on these first two, I didn't do that, so we'll see how those are to get those out. So popping around the edge, pretty easy there. Flip it over. there we go. There's the model. First one out. I'll probably, trim up this, clean this up a little bit. Still a little bit warm, so we'll set that to the side. Go ahead and let that fully cure there. Let's go ahead and get the other one here. This one's the larger one here. Definitely feel that heat from that exothermic reaction as it was curing. So pulled that away a little bit, just flip it over. And let's see if this one pops out too. Yep, that one popped out just perfectly too. Nice. We're gonna go ahead and keep going with the next one here. Came out. Honestly, I couldn't see a lot of difference in the feel from where I used the ease release and from where I didn't for pulling those out. It's kind of interesting. I was curious if I'd be able to tell. Okay, there, that one's out there. So if you want to take a look, as this was the model I used to make it, there you go. You can replicate that. Back is needs a little bit cleaning up. Could have filled it up just a little bit more, but overall looks really, really good. That is how you can turn something like this into something like this. Do it quickly and with just the same quality as your original mold that you used for it. So if you liked what you saw, please go ahead, hit subscribe down below, give this video a good like, and I'll be back with more how-tos, information about 3D printing, photography, and drones. Thank you very much.